Guys, so to get used to our new watercolors, we're going to be doing a Tunisian sunset. So this is what we're going to be painting. And remember to test out your watercolors beforehand, because again, they're quite dark, so you can't really see which is which. So you need to kind of get used to which one is, where. But the first three colors we'll mix together will be black and red. So the black is here, the red is here. Then phthalo blue and ultramarine, using a dirty brush from mixing these two already. So that'll add a little bit of nuance to this blue so that it doesn't seem so straight up of the bottle. And then you're going to want to completely clean your brush and pick up some white and red. So remember, this one is yellow, it's not red. And we'll have that as our third color. Then as we move along, we'll be adding in bits of purple and yellow to each of these colors to bring up the effect. The other supply that we're going to use for this, and you can use, hopefully you have some white gouache at home. If you don't, if you have acrylic, you can also dilute some white acrylic. But as I've mentioned before, white isn't good for lightening things in watercolor, but it can be good for pastel type colors. So that's how we're going to be using it. So let's get started. So I'm going to just move this out of the way. You're going to want to get some sort of straight edge. So I'll just use painting here. And around the lower third of the painting, we're just going to draw a straight line. I have my watercolor paper tilted on a board here, which you should too, which will help just have everything flowing down in the right direction. And now that we have this line down, we can just lightly draw in where the mountain is going to be. It's going to be about up here. And a few marks for the shoreline. So the nice challenge for this one is that we're not just doing the reflections in the water, we're doing the reflections in the water that's covering the sand moving up on the shoreline. So it's going to come around here. And then we're going to have the line of the waves coming from about here all the way past the mountain. We can mark off the light area, and that's really all we need here. We're going to start with a graduated wash, which is where we put down one layer, and this is going to be of the blue. And then adding water to our brush, we're just moving down the page so that the paint creates a gradation. And at this point, this is also serving the purpose of wetting the paper so that we can do some wet on wet effects with the clouds. I'm just going to keep adding water. Now, as I get kind of around the base, it's going to be fairly dilute. But just really, now it's just really wetting the paper. We can continue all the way down to the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to add just a little bit more of this blue color up here, the very top of the sky. Right, now with a clean brush, I'm going to start dropping in the red color. So let me turn this lamp off. Okay, I don't know if that really helped. We'll keep that on. So here we're putting in the clouds in the horizon. We're going to move this color down into the beach as well. Around the center here with a very clean brush, I'm going to pick up some yellow, so the lightest yellow. Test it out to make sure I don't have any greens or anything there. And then dilute it quite a bit. So you want quite a bit of water added to that light yellow so that we can move in and get some of the shapes of the clouds where the sun's hitting. So the sun's going to hit the base of the clouds around here. A little bit of that in the area where the light is going to be reflected in the sand. And what we can also do here is with a clean brush, add some water on top of those white areas. To eat away at the paint and create a cloud-like effect so that these clouds are kind of lit by below with yellow light. We can even lift out some of these lighter areas if you have a little bit of paper towel with you. The highlight around here, one around here, around here, and through here. Now I'm going to mix together a little bit more red and a tiny bit of purple in the same well that I made that pink color in. Just a tiny bit of purple, so it's going to be at this point kind of a yellowish purpley color. I can come in with to do some variation in the clouds and adding like differing amounts of red and differing amounts of purple as you move into the sky in the background will create more of a natural effect. But just remember to dilute your paints first before applying them to the paper. It's going to get more purple as we move down towards the sea. And using this purple mixture, we can now move up into the sky and do some more clouds. So just going to get some purples, add a bit of ultramarine to that. And add some clear water to the edges of the clouds. And because I want it to be a little bit more kind of pinky around here, I'm going to take another clean brush to just test out my water, get some red, dilute it quite a bit, and just move in with some bright pinks around here, around the center. I'm kind of wrangling like clouds as they move along to make them seem more natural. The thing with watercolors is that if you just kind of let it do its own thing, it will create natural forms. You just have to kind of like edit them and get used to moving away a bit from this idea of just painting what's on the photograph. With watercolors, if you let them do their own thing, often they'll do something that seems quite natural. You just have to know where to look. So I'm just dropping in some more purples and ultramarine into the underside of the clouds, adding a little bit of red to that. And then for the sake of perspective, using a dilute amount of that purple, I can kind of just add in a few clouds way off in the distance. I'm just going to add a little bit of ultramarine, dilute ultramarine, so dilute it quite a bit. Apply it way off here in the distance, and I can even bring that down into the ocean. Now, so these will be sort of rain clouds if they bleed down like this. Otherwise, if you don't want the little effects, you can just, again, move over with your brush and pick up some of that paint. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And as I do that, I'm going to mix together some more of the ocean color. So the ocean color is phthalo blue and ultramarine with a little bit of that black red mixture that you created in the beginning, and also a bit of green. So the light green, which is right next to the red. So I'm going to get a color that looks like this. I'm following the horizon line. I'm going to go like it around here. You might have to wait for your paint to dry just a little bit more. I should have let that dry just a little bit more, so I'm going to wipe that off. You can always pull out a hairdryer, just be careful about the direction that you're drawing it in. So I'm just going to wipe this off. I'm going to be adding a little bit more of that phthalo blue to the mixture as I move down towards the base of the waves around here. I'm diluting it quite a bit with the line of the surf. Now I'm going to use a mixture of that greenish color and some purple and add it to that black and red mixture. Put down a few marks for the base of the waves. Then add some yellow to that whole thing. Toast it with red until we get a sand color. The sand color we're going to cover. We have to do this fairly quickly, so you might want to just watch this and then do it. Cover the whole area. And then very quickly, paper towel, pull down 2 areas of highlights. Even get like a faint one here. And from there, we can kind of muddle the edges a little bit so that it's a bit more natural. Going to mix together some ultramarine into that sand color. Get some paint on the sides here. And I'm just adding in little bits of red and yellow to that mixture to get some variation as we move up the sand. If I move into the distance, I'm going to use a smaller brush to create some of those wave shapes. But still using that purplish mixture. I'm just making little kind of streaks going off into the distance. Now carefully, for the area that the waves are just slightly falling up on the sand, I've added some yellow to my purplish mixture. So it's a tiny bit of green add complexity to the color. And then I'm going to move up, adding more yellow to that as we go up the sandbar. And now we need this to dry completely. So I'm just going to pause and get a hair dryer to dry this with. Dry this with a hair dryer. Now, once the painting is dry, we're going to come in again and reinforce the line, the skyline, so only up to the point where the beach ends. So I'm just putting this piece of paper down to block it, and I'm mixing up a concentrated amount of phthalo blue, purple, and green. I'm going to come across this to do a skyline. I can also come in with this color now to do a few waves. And adding a little bit more purple to it, getting the underside of these waves around here. And here I'm just sort of muddling my brush around in the area closest to us to create some textured effects. Before coming in with a pretty dry brush and just moving that out towards the beach. If you're feeling adventurous, you can also use a acrylic brush or a oil brush, or just like a really rough brush that you haven't really taken very good care of, and use that to create some dry brushing marks. And this can just help give some texture to the sand. Oops. And this color here that I'm using is just, I'm just using the muddy colors already on my palette, but if you need to mix up some more, just add some purple and yellow together. Okay, and now we're going to do another fun technique that you can use a very stiff brush for, and that is splattering the paint on the waves. So I'm gonna get a lot of water on my brush. Then I'm gonna get this white. Dip my brush again in the water. Go along the surf line. I'm gonna spray this paint. You can also do this by just knocking another brush against your first one. Then if any paint gets here, you can just wipe it off. I'm gonna let that dry a bit while I move into the mountain. Now for the mountain, that's just going to be black and red. So if you need to mix some more up, you can do that at this point. Just mixing together that black and my red. You'll want to keep your dry brush on hand for this as well, just to create some of the foliage on the mountain. So I'm going to start by moving in on the sandbar. Kind of with a muddling type mark around the outside. We'll have that foliage and that mountain silhouetted against the sky. And for the effect of foliage, you can just come in with your dry brush and make a few marks on the side of the mountain. To add a bit of detail here, you can add a little bit of yellow, that black mixture, and just spatter it a little bit on the side of the painting over here where we've got the sand. And now we're ready to put in some more details of the sandbar. So with that same color, I'm just going to add a bit more yellow to it. So black and yellow, more or less. And I'm going to define the edges of these waves coming up. I'm going to use some red and brown to get some darker areas on the inside of these overlapping waves. really dilute that before brushing that into the sand areas. Now add a little bit of purple to my bluish mixture to come in and reinforce some of the underside of these waves. And also bring a bit of that bluish color into foreground where the sky is being reflected. Okay, now I want to define the waves a bit more, so I'm just going to come in with that white gouache. And just kind of dot that in on the top of the wave. We'll have little like layers of waves coming off. As well as some turbulence in the ocean. And the good thing about this is that the gouache is going to not dry quite so light. So it's pretty much, it's just picking up the colors underneath it and softening them. Now around here, we've got the waves, the ocean just kind of making the sand a bit wet. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to get my dry brush now and just dab this area so that I have a little bit more of a textured effect. Make some more texture up here. And now I'm just going to adjust some of the contrasts. So I'm going to come in with that dark purple mixture. So purple, and you could do purple and brown, purple and black, purple and just all the colors on your palette. This is just for the sake of adding in a bit of contrast in some of these darker areas, like the sides of the waves. Just for textured effect, and you don't have to do this, but just one last thing, I'll do one more spray of that white gouache and then call it a day. All right, so there you have it, a Tunisian beach sunset.